Do not quit. God is about to change your story. I know that life has thrown its fair share of challenges your way. It feels like the weight of the world is pressing down on your shoulders. You've faced disappointments, setbacks, and trials that seem insurmountable. The road you've been walking has been tough and riddled with obstacles, and it's become harder to see the light at the end of the tunnel. In moments like these, it's all too easy to contemplate giving up, to entertain the idea that your story will forever be one of struggle and pain. But I'm here to tell you, do not quit. God is about to change your story. When we're in the midst of adversity, it's challenging to see beyond our current circumstances. It's like standing in the middle of a fierce storm with the rain lashing at us and the thunder deafening our ears. In those moments, it's hard to believe that the skies will ever clear, that the storm will ever pass. We begin to question if we're destined for a life of turmoil, disappointment, and heartache. But the truth is, our darkest moments are often the prelude to our most significant breakthroughs. Think of Joseph, a young man who had a dream that he would be a ruler and that even his family would bow down to him. Yet he was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. He spent years in prison, seemingly forgotten. Joseph could have given up. He could have decided that his dream was nothing more than a cruel illusion. But he didn't. He kept his faith in God and stayed true to his calling. And you know what happened? God changed Joseph's story. He was eventually released from prison and elevated to a position of great authority, second only to Pharaoh in all of Egypt. His dream came true, and he played a crucial role in saving not only his family, but an entire nation from famine. What Joseph thought was the end of his story turned out to be just the beginning of a remarkable journey orchestrated by God. Maybe you're feeling like David facing the giant Goliath with nothing but a sling and a stone. Goliath taunts you and fear grips your heart. The odds are stacked against you and you feel ill-equipped for the battle. Your Goliath may be a health issue, a financial crisis, a broken relationship, or a mountain of debt. It looms over you, threatening to crush your spirit. But remember what happened to David. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45, he faced Goliath, declaring, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, who you have defied." David's faith, not his stature or weapons, secured the victory. God used David's courage and trust to change his story from a shepherd boy to a king. Now you might say, "But I'm not a Joseph or a David. I'm just an ordinary person dealing with overwhelming problems." Let me remind you of another story, the story of the widow who had nothing but a jar of oil. Her husband had passed away, and she was in debt, on the brink of losing her 2 sons to her creditors. Her situation seemed dire, and giving up may have felt like the only option. But this widow didn't quit. She turned to the prophet Elisha for help. Elisha told her to gather empty jars from her neighbors and start pouring her meager jar of oil into them. And the miraculous happened. Her 1 jar of oil filled every jar she'd gathered until there were no more jars left to fill. She was able to sell the oil, pay off her debts, and provide for her sons. God changed her story from one of destitution to one of provision. God specializes in turning the tables, transforming despair into hope, and exchanging mourning for dancing. Your story might be filled with hardship right now, but it's not the end. God is the author of your life, and He's writing a story of redemption and restoration. If you're thinking about quitting, remember that you might be just 1 step away from a breakthrough, 1 prayer away from a miracle, and 1 day away from a change in your story. When God decides to change your story, there's no force that can stop it. Your adversity, your pain, your trials, they are not the end of the road, but stepping stones to the victory that awaits you. Your Goliath will fall. Your debts will be paid. Your sickness will be healed. Your relationships will be restored. All it takes is 1 moment, 1 touch, 1 word from God. So don't quit. Keep moving forward in faith, even when you can't see what lies ahead. The Bible assures us in Isaiah chapter 43 verse 2 that when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Elevation through faith and perseverance. God is in the business of elevating people from the depths of despair to the heights of glory. Throughout the Bible, we find stories of individuals who faced overwhelming odds and seemingly insurmountable challenges, yet they emerged victorious because of their faith and perseverance. Their stories are a testament to the fact that God is not limited by our circumstances. He is the master of turning the tide in our favor. Take the story of Esther, for example. She was an orphan living in a foreign land, and through a series of extraordinary events, she became queen. When her people, the Jews, faced the threat of annihilation, Esther risked her life to stand up for them. God used her to save her people, and her life was a remarkable testimony to how He can change the story of anyone who trusts in Him. In the New Testament, we see the transformation of the Apostle Paul. He was once a persecutor of Christians, zealously pursuing them to be imprisoned or killed. But on the road to Damascus, he encountered the risen Christ, and his life took a 180-degree turn. He went from being a persecutor to becoming one of the most influential figures in early Christianity, authoring much of the New Testament. God changed Paul's story from one of hostility to one of grace and redemption. Another example is the woman with the issue of blood, as recounted in the Gospels. She had suffered for 12 long years, seeking healing from numerous physicians but finding none. In her desperation, she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and in that moment she was made whole. Her story shifted from one of prolonged suffering to one of instantaneous healing because of her unwavering faith. These stories serve as a testament to the fact that God is not bound by our past, our circumstances, or our limitations. He can elevate us from the lowest valleys to the highest peaks. But it requires faith, determination, and a refusal to quit. When we face challenges and obstacles, it's easy to become discouraged and consider throwing in the towel. However, it's precisely in those moments that God often performs His greatest work. When God elevates, it's permanent. One of the remarkable aspects of God's elevation is that it's not temporary or fleeting. When He changes your story, it's a permanent transformation. It's not a quick fix or a momentary relief. It's a shift in your destiny. This is evident in the lives of countless individuals throughout the Bible. Consider the story of the Israelites in Egypt. They were enslaved for generations, enduring harsh labor and oppression. But when God intervened through Moses, leading them out of Egypt, it wasn't merely a temporary escape. It was a liberation that changed their history forever. They were no longer slaves. They were a nation with a new destiny. Another powerful example is the story of Mary, the mother of Jesus. Her life was forever changed when she received the angelic announcement that she would bear the Son of God. That divine encounter transformed her from an ordinary young woman into a central figure in the most significant event in human history. God's elevation of Mary was permanent and far-reaching. When God elevates you, it's not just about personal gain or success. It's about fulfilling your purpose and impacting the world around you. Your story is intricately connected to the stories of others, and God's elevation in your life has a ripple effect. Look at the life of Joseph, who went from being a prisoner to the second in command in Egypt. His elevation wasn't only about his personal vindication. It was about saving countless lives during a severe famine. What if you quit? If you quit now, you risk missing out on the extraordinary transformation God has in store for you. You might be on the verge of a breakthrough, but if you throw in the towel prematurely, you'll never experience the fullness of what God intended for your life. Imagine if Joseph had given up in the pit, if Esther had refused to approach the king, or if Paul had ignored the voice on the road to Damascus. Their stories would have been drastically different, and the impact they had on the world would have been lost. Let me assure you that your story is not over. It's still being written, and the author is the God of the universe. He specializes in taking the broken pieces of our lives and creating something beautiful. He's the God of the turnaround, the God of restoration, and the God of redemption. Your darkest moments are the canvas upon which He paints His most magnificent works. Elevation through trusting God. To experience the elevation God has in store for you, it's crucial to place your trust in Him. The Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Trusting in God means surrendering your doubts, fears, and insecurities to him, and believing that he has a perfect plan for your life. Joseph trusted God even in the pit and the prison. He knew that God's promises were greater than his circumstances. Similarly, you can choose to trust that God's plan for your life is far better than the challenges you currently face. Your current situation does not define your future. Walking in faith. Walking in faith means taking steps. Even when you can't see the entire path, it means believing in the promises of God and acting on them. Faith requires courage and determination. It's what enabled David to face Goliath and Mary to say, "Let it be to me according to your word." Faith isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward in the presence of fear. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, we are reminded that without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Your faith is the key that unlocks the door to God's blessings and elevations in your life. Aligning with God's plan. Aligning with God's plan involves seeking his will in every aspect of your life. It's choosing his ways over your ways, his wisdom over your understanding, and his purpose over your desires. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3 encourages us to commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Aligning with God's plan might require detours and redirections, but those are all part of the journey. God's plan is bigger and better than anything we could ever imagine. It might not always be comfortable or convenient, but it's always purposeful. Your story is a part of God's grand narrative, and he knows how to weave the plot together for a triumphant conclusion. But it requires your willingness to trust, to have faith, and to align your life with his plan. When you do, you position yourself for elevation beyond your wildest dreams. If you have been blessed by this message, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You are blessed.